This 172 scale Revell Shackleton MR3 kit number 03873 will be built in an early South Africa Air Force scheme. Or in Afrikaans, Suid-Afrikaans Lugmag. The South Africa Air Force or SAAF got the first MR3 in 1957 with deliveries starting of 8 aircraft. They had upon delivery paint scheme with the Springbok roundels, but soon these were replaced with the Castle roundels. These aircraft got in the mid-1960s a Phase 2 upgrade in the UK but never got the Viper jets fitted. Then an arms embargo was set by the British Labour government in 1965, so keeping the aircraft flying took a lot of effort. Later, these Shackletons got a new wing spar in a modification program between March 1973 until April 1976. The SAAF Shackletons soldiered on until November 1984. I wanted to make an early MR3 model with the early Springbok roundels as seen on the Shackleton numbered 1716 upon delivery in 1957 with just a few antennas on the fuselage spine. This aircraft has a special history, more about that later on. The Revell MR3 kit is very nice but can be fine-tuned on some aspects. There is a fine interior provided in the kit. Not a lot will be seen of the rear fuselage cabin details through the windows. The rear door was also set closed. I painted the interior fuselage as indicated in the instructions, with mostly light gray. The instrument decal is too light gray. It should be dark gray with black instruments, but it will be invisible and was set. I only added a few seat straps on the mini seats made from masking tape. Revell provides a rigid spar assembly that really helps to get strong wing fuselage joints. Some small changes are necessary that are particular for all SAAF Shackletons. The Astrodome is relocated on the aft fuselage spine in the rear ditching exit panel. Also, this panel was also set offset to starboard. I also closed up the circular opening in the rear fuselage. The fuselage halves were joined. I did not add nose weight, because that would need really a lot of weight. A pogo stick will be installed later. For the early Shackleton, the many recesses for the spine antennas were closed, filled and sanded flush. The large cockpit window needs removal of the ridge on top as indicated by Revell. The tailplanes, wing and nacelles were assembled as per instructions. Use the nacelles parts without the Vipers. Install the engine exhaust pipes though at a later stage after the paint scheme has been airbrushed. Same with the trailing edge flaps. Their interiors are white. The main gear bays and nacelles of the kit look fine. If you want the big bomb bay doors closed, install them now. But I will set them opened up and the bay and door interiors are white. Another small improvement to the Revell Shackleton kit concerns the propeller. The 4 rear propellers of the counter-rotating pairs should have a 2 mm smaller diameter. So I cut off 1 mm from each blade of the rear propeller and sanded the tips again in curved shape. The forward propellers look fine and the props will be installed later as they are very vulnerable. The model is now ready to get the paints for the desired SAAF scheme. The various windows were masked with tape. A base gray primer was airbrushed using my favorite Revell Aqua 75 Steingrau primer. This will reveal any flaws and small gaps and shrinkage. All needs to filled with putty and sanding again when dried. The model now got the base SAAF colors for the early MR3 Shackleton scheme. The color scheme was dark sea gray upper surfaces over Pru blue fuselage sides and undersides, wing and tailplane undersides, and Pru blue vertical surfaces. For the dark sea gray BSC paint number 638 guns Sanyo Mr. Hobby H331 acrylic was airbrushed, thinned 50% with the Mr. Hobby thinner. For the Pru blue a mix was made of 50% guns H56 intermediate blue plus 50% guns H25 sky blue. Make a lot of this mix as all undersurfaces and stabilizers need this. This mix was thinned and airbrushed after masking the gray surfaces. The model has very nice fine engraved rivets and panel lines. SAAF aircraft eventually shows some weathering, so a wash would be appropriate. The model got a gloss varnish. A few coats of Johnson Future Pledge were airbrushed. After drying, loosely dark engine grease artist oil paint of the brand Aptylum 502 was applied particularly on the upper surfaces, and after 30 minutes drying wiped off with an old t-shirt. Very subtle, the rivets and panel recesses remain visible. The oil wash takes a few days to dry completely, so set the model aside. The decals for the early SAAF Shackleton MR3 numbered 1716 as flown by SAAF number 35 Squadron were set on the model. The aftermarket decals came from kits at war. Decals set K75 was used. Please note that the colors are mixed up in these decal instructions, so P ain't as mentioned earlier. SAAF Shackletons have also Suid Afrikaans stenciling texts. These are all nicely provided in the sheet. Setting the yellow walkway lines takes a lot of time, for which I also used the original Revell kit decals. After decaling, the remainder parts were handled. The excellent kit landing gears were installed. On the nose gear no hydraulics are seen. I only added some plumbing inside the gear bays. The kit gear doors are also very good. The model is a tail sitter, so I installed a clear plastic rod at the rear of the bay made from stretched sprue to hold the nose wheels on the ground. It was opted to set the large bomb bay doors open. In the real bay a lot of details are seen on the ceiling. Too much to all add in this 1/72 scale. I suggested these a bit with stretched sprue and a wash. The final external details were added, such as the tail, the many exhaust pipes, pitted tubes and smaller antennas. The nose antenna was refined, and on the forward window a windscreen wiper was added made from black stretched sprue, and then presumably another 3 at the cockpit front windows. The clear rear fuselage cone was installed and its frames painted with a fine brush. A pair of tiny wire antennas were set on the fuselage rooftop, as was a blade antenna. I could not see long wire antennas on the early SAAF MR3, so these were not installed. But they are difficult to spot on old photos, so I may be wrong here. The counter-rotating propellers were now installed. The model finally got a semi-gloss varnish airbrushed with a mix of Johnson Future Pledge acrylic varnish with a few drops of Tamiya Flat Base X21 mixed in. Mask obviously off any windows while airbrushing. A nice model was completed as Shackleton MR3 numbered 1716 as flown by SAAF number 35 Squadron in their first 1957 scheme. This aircraft has a special history. Known as Pelican 16, it was invited to go to the UK for the 1994 airshow season. On YouTube, 2 videos have been published about the Pelican 16 emergency crash landing. Search for Pelican 16. More model details as well as more than 500 other models can be found on my website aircraftinplastic.com. I hope you enjoyed this video.